of these Albanian pimps, and he did give me some lessons how to treat trafficked girls. He said to me, she works 7 days a week. It doesn't cost you much money sending her once a week buying a burger in McDonald's or Burger King.
A young girl can be traded for just £30 in Eastern Europe, but her price upon arrival in the UK can be anything up to £8,000. Once here, they're often traded between different Albanian gangs. In Elena's case, a total of 7 times in just 2 months. Each time she was sold on, her price dropped, as though she was a second-hand car. Then she was bought by another Albanian man and forced to work in a brothel in Leicester. Eventually, she ended up in Sheffield, a city with a serious vice problem.
OK, you're just off the city centre now. There's a massage parlour above Fantasy Locker. Another sex shop here. You'll find that the girls are in the back streets around here, all times of the day and night, all weathers. You know, you'll even see girls out tonight, you know, and it's chucking it down with rain. And darkness falls, you've sort of got a secluded car park. There'll be used prophylactics all over the floor.
Elena was brought to the city by Ile Bijami, a 22-year-old illegal immigrant who imprisoned her in this bleak tower block after buying her for just £1,500.
This is the block she was in with the green staircase. It's pretty grim, isn't it? This is one of the bedrooms where a young 15-year-old would have been brought to, raped and held against her will. You know, it's probably one of the most horrific crimes anybody could ever deal with. I think that's one of the things that needs, is raising that awareness that we're in a city, huge sort of conurbation, and this sort of thing's happening. And it could be right on your doorstep and you don't even know it.
Confident of his total control over the girl, Bijami took Elena out to Sheffield city centre one evening to show her off to his friends.
So that evening, Alistair, Ile Bijami brought Elena down into the centre of town.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. They went into the spa shop here behind us. They were caught on CCTV. From there, they went down to the, what was the nightclub. You take her here basically to show her off. This is what I bought. She broke down in the toilets. There was a couple of young girls in there, and she managed to communicate to them to distract Lado outside. She managed to get out the fire escape. She ran down and she was directed to the police station.
At the station, Elena revealed her shocking story to the police, who swiftly arrested her captors.
The motivation behind all this is financial. It's quite clear this girl has been sold on 7 occasions during a 2-month period. I would say she probably exchanged hands for in the region of £21,000. She was basically fed and watered, if you like, and treated like an animal.
The 2 men who trafficked Elena into the UK and her final owner were prosecuted and sentenced to a total of 40 years in prison. All 3, who are illegal immigrants, will be deported back to Albania when they complete their sentences. But the others who also bought Elena and raped her are still at large. Elena is now safe and back in her home country. As my investigation deepens, I'll be looking into the dealings of a sadistic Albanian gang who made millions from a vice empire spanning 7 brothels in the suburbs of London. I'm Raggy Omar, and I've seen that slavery is alive and well in the UK. I've discovered that Albanian vice gangs are targeting Britain by trafficking young girls and forcing them into prostitution. I wanted to delve deeper and found out that these brutal and violent criminals aren't organised like other gangs.
With Albanian people involved in sex trade, we don't have a mafia structure, someone controlling everyone. Albanian pimps are working for their own pockets. Got small teams based on clan, family connection, blood connection, friendship connection. They created a network, so they're helping each other with working places and with the girls.
One of the most notorious Albanian vice firms of recent years was the Demarku gang, a group of brothers who entered the UK illegally by falsely claiming asylum. Within days of landing on British soil, they'd set up a brothel, not in a city centre as you'd expect, but in a quiet suburb in the shadow of Heathrow Airport. The Demarku brothers' brothels were based here in Hounslow, which is just a few miles from Heathrow Airport, probably the busiest airport in the world, and is where many of the girls were trafficked into this country. Mohammed told me that once the Albanians made it to England, they swiftly picked up some useful tips on how to run brothels.
Albanian criminals learned the trade from British people involved in sex industry. They found out it was very easy opening a brothel. You just rent a house, you put the girls working for you there, and you do advertising on local papers. We've got Albanian criminals who's got their own brothels across the country. In London are about 1,000 illegal brothels, in Scotland, in Birmingham, in Manchester.
The list goes on. Our investigative reporter uncovered a typical Albanian-run brothel in Essex.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. Manager come and talk to you about the price, and you do show you see the girls now.
Okay. Hello.
How are you, baby?
Hello.
Hi. Have you been here before?
No, first time.
Okay, so you're gonna stay with me?
It's £100, 1 hour.
Yes, £100 1 hour. Okay.
1 hour. Okay, full sex.
Yes, everything. Okay.
Where is the cash point?
Our undercover cameraman made his excuses and left. Albanian gangsters are known to control their brothels with unprecedented levels of brutality. Charlie Daniels is a former brothel madam who had many run-ins with the Albanian pimps.
Some of the girls that I was aware of that were Lithuanian working for Albanians were in situations where they were being starved. I was aware of one pal who had an outbreak of scabies, and it had come from these girls because they were just living in such dire conditions. They were also being systematically beaten, but always in areas that wouldn't be necessarily visible, like not the face, not the arms, not the legs. I mean, I heard of one girl who had a 3-year-old son who was back in some village. An Albanian guy went out and kidnapped her little boy. And she hasn't seen him since. And he is holding the child somewhere. And she's got to raise £100,000 before she gets the child back.
The Demarku's vice business in Hounslow had grown at an astonishing rate. Just a few months after arriving in the UK, they were running 7 different brothels. One of the girls who was made to work for the Demarku brothers was a 16-year-old girl from Lithuania who'd been sold to them by another criminal gang. She was forced into prostitution and told she had to do it in order to earn them back the money they paid for her. Now, to give you an idea of what it was like to work for the Demarku brothers, she had to service as many as 10 men in a single day. But by now, the police were onto the gang. An inquiry into a missing 16-year-old girl led the vice squad to one of the Hounslow brothels, and so began a huge surveillance investigation known as Operation Rotunda, one of the biggest operations undertaken by the team. We tracked down one of the officers who went undercover, posing as a client to get inside the brothels.
You would be shown into a bedroom initially, sometimes even in the hallway, and either all the girls would come and stand in a line, or they would come and stand one at a time into the bedroom with you. They come on show like walking into a supermarket and picking your meat up from the meat counter in the butcher's. The girls were just paraded in front of you and you picked the girl that you were interested in. And I picked a particular girl who looked vulnerable. And once I was in the bedroom with her, she was literally shaking. This girl was absolutely petrified.
They'd arrived in this country, probably not speaking the language, not knowing where they were, petrified, forced into prostitution from the first day. What a kind of introduction to British life. There's one story which is particularly horrific of a girl who was a virgin. The other girls had to explain to her what intercourse was, how to put a condom on, what sex involved. And yet she still had to go through it. She's forced to do that, despite the anguish and just the sheer physical pain of it as well. Peter told us that one of the Demarku gang's henchmen had a fearsome reputation. He was Izzet Fezallahu, and the girls daren't cross him.
They ruled these girls with a rod of iron, really. You know, Mr. Fezallahu was quite a forceful type of character. He wouldn't be the sort of person you want to get on the wrong side of. Unless they done as they were told, there would be problems.
The Demarku's family firm was being monitored by police cameras, which captured the gang, the girls, and the punters at the brothels, which were like a non-stop hive of activity. The brothels operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the girls would be woken up at a moment's notice to have sex with a client. Unaware that they were being watched by the police, the Albanian brothers continued to run what was fast becoming a prostitution empire. The Demarku brothers didn't have much reason to leave the area between Heathrow Airport and Hounslow, which is where their 7 brothels were located. But there was one time they made the journey into the very heart of central London for an audacious business transaction. Little did they know it, but the whole thing was caught on camera. Once a girl had outlived her usefulness, she'd be sold on to another gang. Now, you'd think these transactions would take place behind closed doors and away from prying eyes, and you certainly wouldn't expect them to happen in broad daylight on Britain's busiest high street.